From living in sweltering temperatures to having little air inside their prison cells, here's why Savannah Chrisley believes her parents are being treated worse than dogs in prison. You might know this family from the hit reality show Chrisley Knows Best. Turns out, they didn't know. And with the parents behind bars, life's a living nightmare for the children. Together, Todd and Julie Chrisley will serve a combined total of 19 years in prison for defrauding the U.S. government. Back in 2019, the reality stars were charged with 12 counts of tax evasion, bank fraud, and wire fraud. It goes without saying that the family's been dealing with a terrible situation ever since. Todd and Julie's daughter, Savannah Chrisley, spoke candidly about how tough it's been for her to deal with her parents' incarceration, because she not only has to adjust to her parents being gone, but also has to help her younger siblings navigate their new reality. Caring for Chloe and Grayson, who are only 10 and 16 years old, respectively, is taking a toll on the 25-year-old, making it extra harder for her. In a recent podcast interview, Savannah talks about her siblings, the trauma, and the fallout, since their lives turned into living nightmares. Back in November, the Chrisleys were sentenced after being found guilty of a massive and elaborate bank fraud and tax evasion scheme. And if there's one thing we all know about America, it's never, ever mess with the Internal Revenue Service, or IRS for short. You'll get caught every time. And when you do, IRS officials will personally see to it that you serve as much prison time as possible, not to mention the myriad of financial penalties and fines they'll slap you with as well. After their sentencing, Julie was swiftly transported to Federal Medical Center in Lexington, Kentucky to serve her 7-year sentence, while Todd reported to the federal prison camp in Pensacola, Florida, where he'll serve his lengthy 12-year sentence. Maybe if Todd's lucky, when he looks out his cell window, he'll be able to catch a glimpse of some palm trees swaying in the breeze. Other than that, I doubt he'll be having much fun. And upon their release from prison, Todd and Julie have 16 months of probation to look forward to. But it gets worse. Savannah's gravely concerned about her parents' prison conditions. She says the prison housing her mother Julie, Lexington, Kentucky's Federal Medical Center, treats dogs better than they're treating inmates. In an episode of her podcast, Unlocked with Savannah Chrisley, Savannah didn't hold back from blasting the prison facility, saying that the dogs there have heated and air-conditioned spaces while her mother doesn't. She then went on to attack the corrupt system that put her parents in prison, and that no one ever realizes it until, God forbid, they experience it. And there's only one problem with Savannah's claims of horrendous prison conditions. The United States Bureau of Prisons has completely refuted and debunked her claims. A spokesperson for the Bureau said they don't share information on the terms of detention for anyone, mostly for privacy, safety, and security concerns. But they did say that their facilities are accredited and offer humane conditions for all. The American Correctional Association also argues that environmental conditions, including temperature and air quality, are well maintained. But honestly, given all that you hear about the American prison system, it's difficult to know who to believe. As the old saying goes, life changes on a dime, and the Chrisley's family's proof of that. On her podcast, Savannah discusses how much her father's changed since going to prison. Todd's 700 miles away from Julie's facility, and the guy who we've only ever seen with blonde hair now looks disheveled and gray behind the ears. Savannah now has to be strong for her younger siblings, who are having a really hard time accepting the fact that Mom and Dad are no longer around. But there's no one to blame other than Todd and Julie, who should have known better than to mess with the banking system and the IRS. The couple didn't only defraud banks of a small sum of money either. I'm talking $30 million. And their crimes were deliberate and very calculating. They fabricated financial documents designed to give the appearance that they were wealthier than they actually were. Back in November, when their sentences were handed down and made public, it was revealed that Todd masterminded the entire scheme, orchestrating the couple's multi-year tax and bank fraud operation, hence his harsher sentence. The prosecution claimed Julie was only a small bit player, but still culpable, and that she knowingly helped Todd facilitate the scheme. In an interview, Chloe and Grayson explained how hard it was to grieve the loss of parents who were still alive. Now, I don't care what anybody says, but that's sad stuff. What a shame. Think about it. They not only have to face the consequences of their parents' actions, but also have to struggle to live a normal life. Savannah shared how since taking custody of her younger siblings, she always has to put on a brave face. For Savannah, being separated from her father has been extremely hard. Todd was always her go-to person whenever she'd struggle with things that life threw at her. She also says that she feels people judge her for moving on and trying to live a normal life. Whenever Savannah posts about her business on her socials, she gets all sorts of hate and questions from people. She says, on one hand, it's as if people don't want her to mope around, but at the same time, she shouldn't forget that her parents are incarcerated either. Speaking of Savannah's business, it's a beauty brand called Sassy. In her podcast, she mentions that she feels guilty for trying to move on from the tragedy that struck her family and doing normal things like getting married or having kids. Surprisingly, according to the Chrisley family's oldest daughter, Lindsay Chrisley, the family's become closer as a result of this experience. When times are difficult, families are supposed to band together and support one another. After all, that's what family's for, right? It's really crazy to think how this family ended up, from living the American dream to living an American nightmare. Tragic. It was back in 2014 that the Chrisleys debuted their reality series. And from that point on, they all enjoyed a life of fame and fortune. The so-called real estate billionaires invited guests inside their Atlanta home and gave them a peek into their family life. The reality series centered around the couple and their 4 children, Lindsay, Chase, Savannah, and Grayson. And in case you hadn't noticed, Chrisley Knows Best is still airing. It was a shock to see them back on screen in Season 9, smack dab in the midst of all their legal troubles, but you're in store for an even bigger shocker because Season 10 is slated to air this year. The episodes were shot just before Todd and Julie's trial, and right before they swapped their Versace and Prada for orange jumpsuits. While shooting these episodes, Todd and Julie seemingly brushed all of their legal troubles under the rug, and everyone on set was pretending it was just a normal day, going about their usual business. You know, the way reality shows do? Because the 10th season was already in production before Todd and Julie were found guilty. Season 10 will be far shorter than the usual 20 or more episodes. And for those of you wondering whatever happened to the sibling-inspired spin-off series Growing Up Chrisley, I've got an update for you. The series ran for 4 seasons, starred Savannah and Chase, and it'll no longer be aired. Yep, that show is canceled too. So make the most of the Chrisleys while you still can, because the family's time on TV's about to come to an end. There you have it, folks. That's why Savannah Chrisley believes her parents are being treated worse than dogs in prison.